Namaste, Dandavad Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We're also paying our humble Dandavad Pranam to Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada for providing us this wonderful commentary and translation of Bhagavatam. And following the guidance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we are praying to Srimati Radharani. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told us that unless we can understand something about Srimati Radharani in our Bhagavatam reading, then our reading has been wasted. Yadi seva vanchitasyama yasya kripaya vayam labhima sarvam prapnuma prayojanam dhamni Shri Bhagavat Pade Krishna sambandhi sarvam cha yadi na janimahe tutam ashtadashasu sahasreshu shlokanam Bhagavat oktishu radharanimna vindamatada nishvalam Bhagavat adhyayanam radhi kaya kripam vina vyartasyat sarva parishrama. So we are now moving on to chapter 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. This chapter is titled Jaḍa Bharata Instructs King Rahūgaṇa. And we will be, let me share the screen. This is the summary of the chapter. In this chapter, the Brahmana Jaḍa Bharata instructs Maharaj Rahūgaṇa in detail. He tells the king, "You are not very experienced, yet you pose yourself as a learned person because you are very proud of your knowledge. Actually, a person who is on the transcendental platform does not care for social behavior and that sacrifices spiritual advancement. Social behavior comes within the jurisdiction of karmakand, material benefit. No one can spiritually advance by such activities. The conditioned soul is always overpowered by the modes of material nature, and consequently, he is simply concerned with material benefits and auspicious and inauspicious material things. In other words, the mind, which is the leader of the senses, is absorbed in material activities life after life. Thus, he continuously gets different types of bodies and suffers miserable material conditions. On the basis of mental concoction, social behavior has been formulated. If one's mind is absorbed in these activities, he certainly remains conditioned within the material world. According to different opinions, there are 11 or 12 mental activities which can be transformed into hundreds and thousands. A person who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to all these mental concoctions and is thus governed by the material energy. The living entity who is free from material concoctions attains the platform of pure spirit soul, devoid of material contamination. There are two types of living entities, Jivatma and Paramatma, the individual soul and the supreme soul. That supreme soul in his ultimate realization is Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. He enters into everyone's heart and controls the living entity in his different activities. He is therefore the supreme shelter of all living entities. One can understand the Supreme Soul and one's position in relationship with him when one is completely freed from the unwanted association of ordinary men. In this way, one can become fit to cross the ocean of nescience. The cause of conditional life is attachment to the external energy. One has to conquer these mental concoctions. Unless one does so, he will never be freed from material anxieties. Although mental concoctions have no value, their influence is still very formidable. No one should neglect to control the mind. If one does, the mind becomes so powerful that one immediately forgets his real position, forgetting that he is an eternal servant of Krishna, and that service to Krishna is his only business. One is doomed by material nature to serve the objects of the senses. One should kill mental concoctions by the sword of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his devotee, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. Text 1. Brahmana uvacha akovida kovida vadavadan vadasyato nati vidam varista nasurayo hi vyavaharam enam tadvava marshena sahamananti. The Brahmana Jaḍa said, "My dear king, although you are not at all experienced, you are trying to speak like a very experienced man. Consequently, you cannot be considered an experienced person. An experienced person does not speak the way you are speaking, about the relationship between a master and servant, or about material pains and pleasures. These are simply external activities. Any advanced, experienced man, considering the absolute truth, does not talk in this way." Purport. Krishna similarly chastised Arjuna. Asyochan anvasachostvam pragya vadams cha bhashase. While speaking learned words, you are lamenting for what is not worthy of grief. Bhagavad Gita 2.11. Similarly, among people in general, 99.9% try to talk like experienced advisors, but they are actually devoid of spiritual knowledge and are therefore like inexperienced children, speaking nonsensically. Consequently, their words cannot be given any importance. One has to learn from Krishna or his devotee. If one speaks on the basis of this experience, that is, on the basis of spiritual knowledge, one's words are valuable. At the present moment, the entire world is full of foolish people. Bhagavad Gita describes these people as mudhas. They are trying to rule human society, but because they are devoid of spiritual knowledge, the entire world is in a chaotic condition. To be released from these miserable conditions, one has to become Krishna conscious and take lessons from an exalted personality like Jaḍa Bharata, Lord Krishna, and Kapila Dev. This is the only way to solve the problems of material life. Text 2. Tathaiva rajan urughar hameda vitana vidyoru vidrimbiteshu na veda vadeshu hitatvavada prayena shudho nuchakasti sadhu. My dear king, talks of the relationship between the master and the servant, the king and the subject, and so forth, are simply talks about material activities. People interested in material activities, which are expounded in the Vedas, are intent on performing material sacrifices and placing faith in their material activities. For such people, spiritual advancement is definitely not manifest. Purport. In this verse, two words are significant: Vedavad and Tattvavad. According to Bhagavad Gita, those who are simply attached to the Vedas and who do not understand the purpose of the Vedas or the Vedanta Sutra are called Vedavad Rataha. Yam imam purushpitam vacham pravadantyavi paschita Vedavada ratai partha nanyad ashiti vadina kamat manas varga para janma karma falapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishvarya gatim prati. Men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, resultant good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there is nothing more than this. Bhagavad Gita 2.42 through 43. The Vedavad followers of the Vedas are generally inclined to karmakand, the performance of sacrifice according to Vedic injunctions. They are thereby promoted to higher planetary systems. They generally practice the Chaturmasya system. Aksham havai Chaturmasya yagina sukritam bhavati. One who performs the Chaturmasya yagya becomes pious. By becoming pious, one may be promoted to higher planetary systems, urdhvam gachanti sattvastaha. Some of the followers of the Vedas are attached to karmakand, the fruit of activities of the Vedas, in order to be promoted to a higher standard of life. Others argue that this is not the purpose of the Vedas. Tadyatai veha karmajita lokakshayate evam utra punya jita lokakshayate. In this world, someone may become very highly elevated by taking birth in an aristocratic family, being well educated, beautiful, or very rich. These are the gifts for pious activities enacted in the past life. However, these will be finished when the stock of pious activity is finished. If we become attached to pious activities, we may get these various worldly facilities in the next life and may take birth in the heavenly planets. But all this will eventually be finished. Chine punye martya lokam vishanti. When the stock of pious activity is finished, one again has to come to this martya loka. According to the Vedic injunctions, the performance of pious activity is not really the objective of the Vedas. The objective of the Vedas is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Vedaischa sarvar aham eva vedya, Bhagavad Gita 15.15. The objective of the Vedas is to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are Vedavadis are not actually advanced in knowledge, and those who are followers of jnāna, Brahman understanding, are also not perfect. However, when one comes to the platform of upasana and accepts the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes perfect. Aradhanam sarvesham Vishnur aradhanam param. In the Vedas, the worship of different demigods and the performance of sacrifice are certainly mentioned, but such worship is inferior because the worshippers do not know the ultimate goal is Vishnu. Nate vidhu svarta gatim vivishnum. Bhagavatam 7.5.31. When one comes to the platform of Vishnur Aradhanam or Bhakti Tattvavadi, but a Vedavadi, a blind follower of Vedic injunctions. Otherwise, as indicated in Bhagavad Gita, one is not a Tattvavadi but a Vedavadi, a blind follower of Vedic injunctions. A Vedavadi cannot... did I miss something here? Okay. When one comes to the platform of Vishnu Aradhanam or Bhakti Yoga, one has attained the perfection of life. Otherwise, as indicated in Bhagavad Gita, one is not a Tattvavadi but a Vedavadi, a blind follower of the Vedic injunctions. A Vedavadi cannot be purified from material contamination unless he becomes a Tattvavadi. That is, one who knows Tattva, the absolute truth. Tattva is also experienced in three features. Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan Iti Sabjite. Even after coming to the platform of understanding Tattva, one must worship Bhagavan, Vishnu, and his expansions, or one is not yet perfect. Bahunam janmanam mante jnanavamam prapadyante. Bhagavad Gita 7.19. After many births, one who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto Krishna. The conclusion is that unintelligent men with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand Bhagavan, Brahman, or Paramatma. But after studying the Vedas and attaining the understanding of the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is supposed to be on the platform of perfect knowledge. Dandavat Pranam Tosi Maharani Devi Dasi.
Dandavat Pranam.
Text 3. Natasya Tattva Grahanaya Sakshad Variyashir Api Vachasamasan Swapne Niruktya Grihamedhi Saukyam Nayasya He Nanu Mitam Svayam Syat. A dream becomes automatically known to a person as false and immaterial And similarly, one eventually realizes what material happiness in this life, that material happiness in this life or the next, on this planet or a higher planet, is insignificant. When one realizes this, the Vedas, although an excellent source, are insufficient to bring about direct knowledge of the truth. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 2.45, Krishna advised Arjuna to become transcendental to material activities, impelled by the three material modes of nature. Tragunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtragunyo Bhavarjuna. The purpose of Vedic study is to transcend the activities of the three modes of material nature. Of course, in the material world, the mode of goodness is accepted as the best, and one can be promoted to the higher planetary systems by being on the Sattva Guna platform. However, that is not perfection. One must come to the conclusion that even the Sattva Guna platform is also not good. One may dream that he has become a king with a good family, wife and children, but immediately at the end of that dream, he comes to the conclusion that it is false. Similarly, all kinds of material happiness are undesirable for a person who wants spiritual salvation. If a person does not come to the conclusion that he has nothing to do with any kind of material happiness, he cannot come to the platform of understanding the absolute truth or tattva gyan. Karmis, jñānis, and yogis are after some material elevation. The karmis work hard day and night for some bodily comfort, and the jñānis simply speculate about how to get out of the entanglement of karma and merge into the Brahman effulgence. The yogis are very much addicted to the acquisition of material perfection and magical powers. All of them are trying to be materially perfect, but a devotee very easily comes to the platform of nirgun in devotional service. And consequently for the devotee, the results of karma, jnana, and yoga become very insignificant. Therefore, only the devotee is on the platform of tattva gyan, not the others. Of course, the jnani's position is better than that of the karmi, but that position is also insufficient. The jnani must actually become liberated, and after liberation he may be situated in devotional service. Mad bhaktim labate param. Bhagavad Gita 18.54. Text 4. Yavanmano rajasa purushasya satvena vatamasa vanurudam Cheto bir akuti bir atanoti nirankusham kushalam chetaramba. As long as the mind of the living entity is contaminated by the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, his mind is exactly like an independent, uncontrolled elephant. It simply expands its jurisdiction of pious and impious activities by using the senses. The result is that the living entity remains in the material world to enjoy and suffer pleasures and pains due to material activity. Purport. In Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that material, pious, and impious activities are both opposed to the principle of devotional service. Devotional service means mukti, freedom from the material entanglement. But pious and impious activities result in entanglement with this material world. If the mind is captivated by the pious and impious activities mentioned in the Vedas, one remains eternally in darkness. One cannot attain the absolute platform. To change the consciousness from ignorance to passion, or from passion to goodness, does not really solve the problem. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 14.26, Sagunan samitatyaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One must come to the transcendental platform, or otherwise life's mission is never fulfilled. Okay. Thus ends our reading for today. We will continue from text 5 on Wednesday. So before we conclude for today. Were there any comments or questions from the assembled devotees? Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Tirtha Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Shri Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai.
Jai.
Davan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai.
Jai.
Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Scientific Saṅkīrtana Yagya Ki Jai.
Jai.
Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai.
Jai.
Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Bo.
Haribol.
Jai Shrimati Tulsi Devi Dasi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Bhakti Shivam Ki Jai. Bhakti
Jai.
Charat Ki Jai.
And,
Ego.
and Krishna Keshavadas Ki Jai. Just one thing before you go.
Yeah.
Shivam, you unmuted yourself before he started with the conclusion. Did you have a question?
Yes, I had a question, but
Yeah, please. Sorry, I didn't notice.
Really, like it was said that Tattva Gyan and Gyan discussion was going on in the purport that Tattva Gyan and Gyanis, they are different.
Is
So
it
I
tat?
am right.
Yes.
My confusion right now is like sometimes it seems like even when we try to understand the Tattva Gyan, sometimes we have this Gyani mentality. So like it seems to be a blur boundary there. Like what is Tattva Gyan and what is Gyan?
The word tatvavad was also being used. Right?
Vedvad and Tattvad.
Yeah. So some I don't think we should get too bogged down with these kind of terms because the tatvavad is also used to describe the followers of Madhvacharya, right? So, and we know that the tattvavads of the followers of Madhvacharya are slightly, they have a slightly different idea from Mahaprabhu's philosophy, and there's a whole Leela in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Mahaprabhu goes to speak to the tattvavadis. So, as long as we have a general understanding of the difference between Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga, I think that's sufficient, So the difference would be we have four kinds of yoga described in Bhagavad Gita: Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga is fruitive. It's still a type of yoga. It's still directed towards Krishna, but it's thinking, okay, I'm not ready to surrender. I'm not ready to become detached from the material conception of the world. So rather, let me continue to engage in the material world as I was doing before, but I know Krishna is there, so I'm trying to do my material activities as an offering to Krishna. That's Karma Yoga. Then Jnana Yoga is, okay, I've seen that the fruitive nature of the material world is such that I will always be going into bondage. Even if I do something good, the reward will bring me deeper into the material world. If I do something bad, the punishment will bring me deeper into the material world. Material world means suffering from birth, death, old age, and disease, right? So the Jnana Yoga wants to renounce the world. I don't want anything to do with the world. No more fruitive reactions. Let me cultivate knowledge of God from the scriptures, and in that way become absorbed in God through just reading the scriptures. Then the Ashtanga yogis, so Jnana Yoga is also related to Brahman realization. Right? As we just read, there are three phases of the Absolute: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Jnana Yoga is aimed at Brahman realization. Ultimately, it's the impersonal Brahman merging with the impersonal Brahman effulgence is the goal of Jnana Yoga. So then we have Ashtanga Yoga, which is aimed at the Paramatma realization of the Lord. So the Ashtanga yogis, they try to control the senses and the mind through yama niyama, ethical guidelines, moral guidelines, through the asanas and the pranayama, the poses, the bodily poses and the breathing exercises, right? Dhyana, meditation, to try to cultivate this samadhi, this stillness of the body, stillness of the mind, in order to focus completely on the aspect of God that is in the heart, which is Paramatma. And there, it's considered higher than Jnana Yoga because at least Paramatma is a personal feature of the Absolute. So it's at least on the personal platform. But it's not, the Ashtanga Yoga isn't trying to establish a personal relationship of, because we can only establish personal relationships with the Lord through having a service mentality, a loving service mentality. But the Ashtanga, the yogis who are doing the yoga process, the 9 limbs of yoga, are not looking to establish a serving relationship of the Lord. They're looking simply to have superficial darshan, right? Just to see the Lord in the heart, to have their meditation so intense that they can have the darshan of the personal feature of the Lord as Paramatma. So then above that, farther than that, is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga recognizes neither being entangled in the material world nor renouncing the material world is beneficial. And yes, the personal feature of the Lord is there, but we are not to just try to see the personal feature of the Lord. We are to try to cultivate loving relationship with the Lord. That is the eternal platform. The eternal platform is that which subsumes everything else. We're in the material world, and we can use everything here for Krishna service. Yes, renunciation is there. We have to renounce those aspects of our experience that are not conducive to cultivating this kind of Krishna conscious mindset of using everything at our disposal for the Lord's service, for associating with the devotees and surrendering to Sri Guru and rendering service and cultivating ourselves in this way. We can use the yoga to help our mind and body to be fit for service, but we're not after that ultimate fruit. So bhakti can take the best out of karma yoga, take the best out of jnana yoga, take the best out of ashtanga yoga, and utilize all of them for what is beneficial to cultivating prem. So as long as we have this kind of understanding of the different yogas, when we encounter terms of tattvavad, vedavad, which kind of tattvavad, we don't have to worry about all that, just as long as we have these understanding of the 4 yogas, and then we can try to understand everything else in terms of that.
Ji Prabhuji. Prabhuji, can I ask a simple question?
Yeah.
Like many times Prabhupada writes in his purports that these karmis are engaged in work for the gratification of their senses. But sometimes in real world, people ask and people say like, we are not even able to manage our life. And how can we enjoy? Like currently, if we see the economic situation right now, so many governments falling down and so many people have difficulty maintaining their families. So they say these types of things. Like we are not even able to maintain basic things, and you are saying we are interested in sense gratification. It makes no sense. So, like, what is the understanding here?
Yeah, well, we have to see what is the root cause, or what is the root faith that is determining their activities in the world. Whether they're successfully enjoying their senses or not, what is the goal that they're aiming for? Their goal is to have a wonderful family life, to see beautiful things, taste beautiful things, hear beautiful things. But whether they're successful in that or not isn't the question. But that's the goal, definitely. If the economic situation was right, if the politics were going well, we would be enjoying our senses to the max.
Mm.
Right? So
Yeah.
that now we're just upset that we're not successful. but but that ultimately, what is the thing that they're after? That people understand that the four aims of life are dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and that's what they're after. They don't understand that prema is there, because if they really understood that, right, then the whole process of bhakti is there, which helps us not to be affected by the current economics, or maybe we can't avoid being affected by it, but our consciousness is such that our activities are not that affected by it, because we're engaged in our sadhana. Our consciousness is trying to be developed in such a way that we see Krishna in everything, even difficult situations. So we're not that attached to the current situation. We're trying to see Krishna even in non-successful material situations. So that, I think that's where it's at.
Ji, Prabhuji. So we are trying to, Bhakti is trying to change the ultimate goal or the consciousness of the person, not his material life.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you.
Jai. Hare Krishna. So,
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare
Have a Krishna conscious, wonderful day.